So this is the brand new OnePlus 10T, and I'm gonna compare it to the 10 Pro because the 10 Pro just got a price drop to $799. And depending on what you want your device for, you might wanna aim for the 10T instead because you're saving yourself a lot of money. Now, the thing is, you're not gonna get an alert slider. So if that's something you've always wanted on your OnePlus device, it's iconic to the brand, it's gone. You know, and I asked you guys how you felt about it in the previous video, and a lot of you had some angry words about it, you know? This is a feature that's always been part of OnePlus phones, and if you want that alert slider, you have to buy the 10 Pro or buy an iPhone. And the reason why they took it away was to give us faster charging. 1 to 100% in just 20 minutes using 125 watt charging. This is all fine and dandy, but the OnePlus 10 Pro already charged fast enough. The 65 watt charger inside of here would get you to 100% in just 30 minutes. And quite personally, I would rather have the alert slider and wireless charging than 10 minutes of faster normal charging. Now looking at both, it's kind of hard to tell which one's which, but the right one here, the 10 Pro, feels a little different, you know, like you put your finger on the back here, it's smoother glass, it has a smoother finish. The camera bump sticks out from the bottom. It doesn't feel like it's part of the body like the 10T does. And you can tell, like when you look at the side of the camera bump here, there's a little slit here separating the bump from the device. The 10T, on the other hand, also has a glass back, again, no wireless charging, but the texture is a lot rougher. In fact, this sort of design reminds me a lot of a D-brand skin. I feel like they went to the D-brand store and just slapped them on all their devices. You do get a smoother finish, so if you run your finger along the side of the camera bump, it's part of the body now. Like it just doesn't feel separate. But they did get rid of the Hasselblad logo, so it makes this device look a little bit more premium. Now, the feel in the hand is similar in a lot of ways, okay? When you're holding both devices, the 10T has a slightly more squared finish, even though the sides are round, because the 10 Pro has an edge display. It's not a massive edge like you'd find on previous Galaxy devices, but there's an edge there. And for those of you that don't like edges, like myself, might find this slightly more annoying to type on than you would a flat screen. The good news is the OnePlus 10T is completely flat. So you get a normal flat display, which makes typing a lot easier. They moved the front-facing camera directly in the middle compared to the left-hand side you'd find on the 10 Pro. The camera is still 32 megapixels, so whether you use this phone or the 10T, you're gonna get the exact same results in terms of computational photography and the entire works. Even all the video modes you can record in are identical. The devices are both 6.7 inches, but the 10 Pro does have a QHD Plus display, so it's more pixel dense. Hard for me to tell on this size, maybe because I'm getting really old, I'm like 92. I can't really see the pixels on this Full HD Plus display. The 10T just looks good enough. But even though they're both rocking 120 Hertz displays, the 10 Pro is using LTPO, which means the refresh rate can ramp up from 1 to 120 Hertz. The 10T can ramp up and down, but it's an adaptive refresh display, so it can only do 60, 90, and 120. It looks just as good in terms of color accuracy and gamut, but the 10 Pro has a higher peak brightness. This thing just gets a lot brighter outdoors. There's a couple of other differences with the display. For example, you get adaptive sleep with the 10T, but you don't with the 10 Pro. 10 Pro has natural tone, which is their version of Apple's True Tone. 10T doesn't have it. Now, another design difference is the frame of the body. We're talking a metal frame on the OnePlus 10 Pro. You can see the antenna lines shining through in order for you to get reception. With the 10T, there's 15 antenna bands around here. They're saying that no matter which way you're holding the device, you will always have antenna bands free so that you continuously get a good connection depending on what you're doing. The downfall to this is you don't have a metal frame. I feel like this is plastic, so you don't need to see the antenna bands. It just looks a lot cleaner. Quite frankly, I don't know, it does feel a little bit cheaper than the 10 Pro, but it's so minor that I can't really knock them on it. They both have stereo speakers. So there's another speaker at the top of the device, and the sound quality is identical. They're using the exact same speakers on both of these smartphones. Now there is an optical scanner at the bottom. It's nice and quick, it works very well, but they also have facial recognition. I enabled it, it works, it's pretty quick when it does, but the lighting has to be optimal. If it's a little bit too dark or the lighting is not as good as it should be, it will not work. So I like to leave them both on, which whatever one works first is the one that gets me into my device. I should also mention fingerprints. Like this new texture they're using doesn't get any fingerprints at all. Most of the fingerprints I do get are along the side or obviously on the screen of the device. This does a pretty good job of blocking fingerprints too, but this material is slightly more optimal to fingerprints than the back of the 10T. So camera systems are different. With the 10 Pro, you're using a 48 megapixel wide lens, 8 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 50 megapixel ultra wide lens. With the 10T, you get a 50 megapixel wide lens, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro. The big difference there is the ultra wide lens. They're very different, and you can only zoom up to 2 times with the 10T compared to 3.3 times with the 10 Pro. But when it came to actual picture quality, I didn't find much of a difference. Like, don't get me wrong, there's slightly different color science happening here. I found the 10 Pro to be a bit more saturated. It reminded me of that older Samsung look where you had these beautiful deep colors paired with dark shadows, whereas on the 10T, everything was a bit more flat. You know, I found that the exposure was good, but the photo was a bit more flat, but it still looked great. I didn't think one was more superior over the other. But if you get up close to certain objects, the 10T actually performed better. It had less softness around the edges. It was a bit more sharp. Whereas this guy, sure, it gave you more bokeh, but it would only center the focus compared to giving you more of the actual picture that you're trying to take a picture of. Now, nighttime photography was fantastic on both devices. In fact, in some situations, I think the 10T actually performed a tiny bit better. I found that in tough, dark shots, the 10 Pro would get very soft, like it would lose some of that detail if you were to punch in. If you're looking at video, then the 10 Pro has more features. You get 8K recording, not really a big deal, but you do get 4K 120 FPS compared to only 4K at 60 FPS. So right now you're looking at the front-facing camera on both the OnePlus 10T and the OnePlus 10 Pro. And yeah, you know, they're very similar, at least from what I'm seeing. But obviously you guys gotta let me know which one looks better, which one has the better microphone. Honestly, both phones take good pictures. They're not beating the iPhones or the Galaxy devices of today, but they're good enough, you know? And quite frankly, I don't think the price point of the OnePlus 10 Pro can really justify those extra features. They're there, but I don't think the camera quality is there to go with it. Now, if you are buying this for the software experience, they're fantastic. Like, it's very similar on both devices. I've had 0 issues of glitches or drops on either phone. Like, it's just been really, really good. Battery life is also good on both devices. You have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery with the 10 Pro, and it does give you better battery life overall, but I also got really good battery life with the 10T. If you're to take like no pictures during the day and you're just using it for like email, music, the general stuff, I could literally get 8 hours of screen on time with this if I really wanted to. But as soon as you start using the camera and you start using like heavier stuff like gaming, for example, then that screen time gets reduced by a lot. It's not iPhone 13 Pro Max good, but it's very good overall. So if you're looking at the 10T, you want OnePlus's fastest device. That's what this device is really aimed for, and they have made some updated changes to the internals to provide better thermals. It is using the newer Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 compared to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and the 10 Pro, but they've also increased the number of thermal dissipation channels that are inside of the device. It's up to 8 now. It's using some sort of crypto velocity thermal chamber, whatever that means, but it's supposed to be a lot better when you're actual gaming. Now, quite frankly, I mostly play Apex Legends on mobile. I might jump into the odd Genshin to see how it runs on these devices, but I didn't find that this device was significantly better in terms of performance compared to the 10 Pro. What I did find though was it ran well. Honestly, if OnePlus came onto the market and priced this OnePlus 10T very close to the 10 Pro, I would say don't buy it. But $649 says a lot. This is a good price for the type of specs and quality you're getting with this phone. Sometimes money talks and alert sliders walk, but it comes down to whether or not you can handle not having an alert slider and also wireless charging. I know for me personally, wireless charging, not having it is a deal breaker, but if you can handle that, then I think for $649, the 10T is a pretty good deal. But for $799, it's really hard to suggest the 10 Pro at this point because it's very similar to the 10T in a lot of ways, and you're saving more money by going for the 10T. I hope this video helps you out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.